Welcome to the Spirit in Mind broadcast with your hosts, Bishop C. Guy Robinson and Dr. Jonathan Shepherd, where we explore faith and mental health perspectives on current affairs. Let's get into today's discussion with the Spirit in Mind.
Well, hello and welcome to Spirit in Mind, where you just heard it. We discuss current affairs with faith and mental health perspectives. I'm Bishop Guy Robinson, and it is truly a blessing to be able to have time to share with our Spirit in Mind family once again. And Spirit in Mind would not be Spirit in Mind without our colleague and co-host, Dr. Jonathan Shepherd, who is with us again today. Dr. Shepherd.
Yes, Bishop. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Listen, we want you to let everyone know that it is time for Spirit in Mind. There's several ways you can join us. Of course, if you're streaming, feel free to let someone know that we are streaming live, and we are live in the studio here at Praise 106. In fact, you can call us when we get into the discussion in just a few moments. You can be a part of our live discussion at 443-380-2803. Again, that's 443-380-2803. And you can be with us here live on Spirit in Mind when we get into our content in just a few moments. So Dr. Shepherd is going to share some other ways that we can stay connected.
Yes, and thank you again, Bishop, and want to greet everyone who is out there. So glad that you joined us today, whether you're joining us via live stream or if you're joining us listening to the broadcast. We so appreciate your ability to connect with us. I am so thankful for the various comments, the various persons who sent messages, whether it be through our email address or through text messages, or even when you see Bishop or I in person. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for letting us know that you're supporting us. And Bishop, I believe that we're continuing this momentum. And so we want you all to let us know, because that is what drives our passion. That's what makes us come each and every single week, bringing to you the best that we are able to regarding the materials that we're discussing. And let me tell you, reach out to Bishop. You will be so blessed if you do. If you go to his website, you can go there, or social media pages, I should say. You can go to CGR Ministries, and you can see the great things that he's doing. CGR Ministries is on Instagram and or Facebook. You can also go to the website where he is the pastor of the Tabernacle of the Lord Church on 2100 West Baltimore Street or Avenue in Baltimore City. And so we want you to go over there. You can listen to the various messages and sermons that he's sharing. You can also check out the books that he has authored, Critical Collaborations, and even just check out what he's doing over at Morgan State University. God-gifted, a talented person. And so you want to go and check out those things from Bishop C. Guy Robinson. Then you can also go to my website, drjonathanshepherd.com, and you can see the wonderful things that are upcoming that I have been involved in, and want you all to know that if you're in need of direct care services, what are direct care services? If you're in need of counseling, therapy, medication management within the state of Maryland or the District of Columbia, you can reach out to me, and I can help point you in the right direction. I do my best to point people in the right direction. And even if you don't live in those areas, I typically have a network that I can reach out to who may be able to help you. We're so grateful that in this show, we're able to provide the spiritual guidance, even the mental health guidance that we do. We want you to know that we're here to guide. We're not necessarily here to treat or to diagnose, but we're here to provide assistance and to provoke you to do better. Because in these times, we know that people are ailing in their minds, and not just in their minds, but acting out emotionally. And we're thankful for Spirit of Mind, because Spirit of Mind is a reference point that can help lead you on that right path. And so thank you, Bishop.
Absolutely. I want to echo everything Dr. Shepherd just said, and we look forward to our ongoing, for those who are already connected, we look forward to our continuing connection, and we're excited about new connections as we continue to serve in the Spirit in Mind format. We got some other exciting things happening with Spirit in Mind, and we'll be sharing them soon. And so just keep us in your prayers as we continue to grow in the grace and knowledge of the Lord. So listen, we've been talking about transitions, and it's always a relevant subject. Our culture is going through transitions. Business world is going through transitions. Our political landscape is going through transitions. It's an election year. Subjects are being brought up, topics and hot button issues and talking points. And it's a time of transition on so many fronts, and even in our personal lives. And so we've been sharing a little bit from our own personal experiences, Dr. Shepard and I, understanding that although there may be distinctions, there are certain points of commonality in which you may hear us sharing and biblical witness. We've been trying to meet at the intersection of all of those things: what's going on socially, what's going on personally, what's going on interpersonally, and what's going on biblically. And with that in mind, we've not only been talking about our circumstances and our transitions, but we've been talking about biblical transitions. And so we've talked about when you first get out in that new place, and we talked about some of the coping strategies and some of the challenges that can present themselves. We've talked about living in the new place. Like, okay, now I've shifted. Now I'm on that new job. Now I'm in that new school. Now I'm in that new city. Now I'm in this new circle of social circle, if you will. And so what's next? How do I learn to do that? And we use David as an example in terms of living in Ziklag, a place that he really ended up going to as a result of crisis in First Samuel, and having to go there because of his estranged relationship with King Saul. But he's in the land of the Philistines now, which isn't the greatest area to be in, but he's got to learn how to navigate in a new space that's also a difficult space. Maybe some of you have moved into a new season, a new space. You're navigating through all the politics. David had to deal with King Achish and the politics of dealing with someone with whom he had historical issues. So he ran from issues into issues, and still navigating through those. And then while dealing with the Philistines, the Amalekites show up and dealing with different things. And so now we've been talking about how do you know when it's time to transition to the next thing. And we welcome again your insight. You can call it at 443-380-2803. Dr. Shepard's going to take us a little further into this ongoing conversation. While he gets ready to do that, again, you can call in. You can put your experiences in the chat line or your questions. We appreciate the dialogue and the interaction because we get better by talking together. So Dr. Shepard is going to take us further.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Sarita Watson and Sandra McCray, and for joining us. And we are so thankful that you all are with us today. And let me tell you, Bishop, this has been such a wonderful time of sharing with other people, as they have said, man, Shepard, Bishop, you all are really hitting home, because it's hard to know when a place is a rest stop versus a final destination. Again, that every time I say that, it just kind of clicks within me, because so many times we find ourselves at that deciding point, place of decision, where is what I'm going through, is that is it a rest stop or is it a final destination? And as I was sharing with you all in previous episodes, been looking at how do you help determine if that is a resting stop or a final destination, because honestly, it's difficult. It's difficult to know at times. And I've been reading and really studying and meditating on God's word and reading books. I encourage you, this is just a little side note, please pick up a book. Please go to Audible or some platform so you can continue to fuel your mind, fuel your faith, fuel your inner man, because you must do that. It's hard to decide if you're at a rest stop or a final destination if you have not been supplying what you know it takes to keep you motivated and to keep you going. That's like trying to drive a car and not putting fuel in it after you have taken a long drive. That's something that you must do on a continual basis. We must be able to fuel ourselves. And that actually is one of my points, is that we must make sure we have the right type of fuel inside of us. I'll just stay there for a minute. Many times we are fueling ourselves with bitterness, with anger, with agitation. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes when we find ourselves in that destination, we're angry. We find ourselves because we're mad because things are not working out the way in which we had wanted them to. I can only imagine how David must have felt, and I'm sure Bishop will talk more about his emotions. But have you ever found yourself in a place where you were seeking refuge, trying to get away from the enemy, trying to find yourself in a secluded place? You're tired of dealing with the abuse that you're dealing with at home. Oh man, I wish I could get a witness out there. You're tired of dealing with that job. You're tired of dealing with those persons who make you tired, weary every single week. It's so bad that even on Sunday nights, you find it hard to sleep. You find it difficult to wake up on Monday morning to go back into that job. You find it difficult even to get out of your car to go back into that house because of all that you're dealing with. And now, again, I'm not trying to exhort to let somebody leave, or that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying it can be hard when you're trying to make a decision about where you are if you have not been fueling yourself and you allow the anger, the bitterness, the hurt, the agitation, the frustration, the feelings of being overwhelmed. If you allow that to continue to be what you allow your emotions and allow your mental capacities to feed on day after day after day after day after day, you're not going to know once you find yourself in that place where to go next. You're going to start acting out of bitterness. You're going to start acting out of anger. You're going to start cutting off people. You're going to start making decisions that are not wise for you. So it is important to know what is fueling you at that time. I really want to hit on that today. We didn't get a chance to hit on that in previous episodes. But what's fueling you, or what type of fuel that you're using is so important, as we're able to know that difference. Once you get in your home, once you get in that apartment, once you get in that house, you got to make sure you have the right fuel. You got to make sure that you're using the right source. There's some places where you can't just use kerosene. I'm really dating myself, Bishop. My grandmother used to use a kerosene heater, and I don't know if they even use kerosene today. I don't know. But that won't work in my particular home right now, because it's not going to fuel. It's not going to allow the heat to generate inside my house, and you know what, it might cause some deadly fumes to be put out. And here I am trying to fuel and heat my house with the wrong source. So hopefully you all are getting that practical application. So Bishop, I want to start right there, because that's where I am today. That's where I want to hang my hat. Knowing what type of source, what is fueling you, what's feeding you once you get to that destination. Make sure you're eating the right things. I can even stay there for what's your appetite like? Once you get to that destination. So let me stop, because I don't want to go too much further, Bishop.
This is important. These are important things you're bringing up, Dr. Shepherd. And I'm grateful that the Lord led you to even take that route. Because again, this speaks to this idea of the importance, because we talked about this previously, but it's a point of passion for me that I think has to be reiterated in our culture concerning the power and importance of prayer. As we check our sources and our resources, we have in some contexts, there's this concern about us reducing prayer to a very consumer-oriented culture rather, in which we live, in which we just kind of drop off our requests. But prayer is a conversation in this sense.
Yes.
And there's all types of prayer, and some of the what we call in the theological disciplines, spiritual formation and spiritual development through contemplative prayer and being in silence. And we can't restrict prayer. But here's some questions that I just jotted down as you were sharing. That these are the questions we have to ask ourselves when we're in that place. Well, first, let me start with the statement. Sometimes growth occurs, as we talked about, through crises. Last week, we talked about crises being growth opportunities.
Yes.
That in the stages of our psychosocial development, crises and growth opportunities are intertwined.
Yes.
And so our challenge is there's a prayer request. God, help me to see the growth opportunities. And sometimes that prayer may be answered in multiple ways, and I'll get to that in a minute. But here's the prayer request. God, help me to see the opportunities amid the obstacles. It doesn't mean that I'm in denial or can't see the obstacles. I fully understand the obstacles, but lest I overly react to the obstacles, help me to see the opportunities that may be embedded in the obstacles, because growth opportunities come in the form of crises. For David, lest Ziklag would become too comfortable, the Amalekites were at least allowed, if not ordained, to cause disruption. And there's the challenge. So, do I deal with this? And that reminds us that although this place that reminded David is a place of respite, it is not my purpose and destiny, because the anointing that was on my life was not to be ruler of Ziklag, but to be the king of Israel.
Right.
And so that helps us clarify the differences that Israel and Ziklag, so we can appreciate the places that God sends us for respite, to replenish, to restore, but that may not be the place of ultimate purpose and assignment. So we have to ask ourselves, and then other times, I wanted to add this, growth doesn't always just come through crises. Growth can come through health. Pastor Rick Warren argued so well in the Purpose Driven Church that healthy organisms grow organically.
Yes.
And you don't have to yell it. I parented 4 children by the grace of God. I never had to yell at them, grow, grow, grow. What I had to do was nurture them.
Wow.
And do the best that I could to provide a healthy environment. There is something inside of them that is automatically conditioned to grow. And so one day those clothes don't fit. And sometimes it's not always crises. We just wake up one day and realize that we've grown.
Wow.
And growth is a healthy and natural experience. And so so these are ways, and so I'm just trying to guide some of our prayer requests. Here's another one. Am I being avoided, or am I being anxiously attached? Because avoidance can cause us to run, to tender resignations too soon, to quit, to give up, to leave school because we failed a test, to do catastrophic thinking. To go to worst case scenario, I'm gonna get you before you get me. All kinds of things. I'm going to leave you because if I have these core beliefs inside of me that people leave me, then I'm gonna get you before you get me. I have to ask the Lord to show me myself. Am I being avoidant, or do I have anxious attachment issues? Because anxiety and anxious attachments will make us hold on to the Ziklags when God is trying to move us on to the Israels of our lives. But I'm afraid to let go. Have I outgrown this, or is this an opportunity for me to develop new coping skills? Because this may not mean moving. It may mean that God is developing some stuff. I dealt with the last 3 things that challenged me by I always run. Let me do something different this time. Maybe God is trying to develop something else, that I learned how to have what we call critical, important conversations. So maybe it's developing that. So, and I close with this, Dr. Shepard, for this section. When we ask these questions, these are questions that we can ask God in prayer to reveal to us. And that's what I mean by doing more than dropping off requests. But that's a part of praying. But staying for the answer and being open to the fact that God answers in different ways. I just jotted down a few of the ways in scripture that God answers. A still small voice, according to the prophet. Not in the earthquake this time, not in the flood this time, although God has answered by flood with Noah. He has answered by earthquake. He has answered by burning bush. He has answered through tongues of men and angels.
Right.
He's even answered through a donkey. That's how he talked to Balaam.
Yes.
He talked to Job in a windstorm.
Yes.
And so God has different ways of responding. So I want to add to that. God might speak through the sermon. So you need to go to church tomorrow. God might speak through the direct care services of the psychotherapeutic session that you have.
Yes.
God has all kinds of ways of speaking to us, and we have to be open to it. So even after we leave the altar, we still got to be open. He answers through natural revelation. Paul says in Romans 1 that by the visible things in nature, the invisible things of God are clearly seen.
Right.
He'll get you on a plane and get you up 30,000 feet in the air and show you the clouds and say, God is in control.
Yes.
He's got me covered.
Wow.
So be open to all the different ways that God can speak. It might not just be in a dance. It might not just be in a quickening in church. It might be in multiple ways because God's got all kinds of languages for us to be open to.
And thank you, Bishop. And I'm just loving the comments that we have for those who are joining us through live stream. And just going to mention a few from Ms. Rebecca about when your growth is stunted, you cry out to the Lord, but be prepared for how he releases you. She also talked about how growth can be painful. And Angela Perkins again mentioned, and I wrote this down, that healthy organisms grow.
Yes.
And honestly, that's where I want to hang my hat as we are coming to a close here. We have to remember that many times we are so focused in on the crises that we forget that if you are an organism and if you've been fueling yourself right, that you should be growing. I tell people all the time when they come into my office, I would not have a job if I didn't know what normal looked like. People come into my office, they come to the physician, and I hope you all catch this, is that when you have a good physician, the good physician also knows what normal is supposed to be. Just because you have a cold doesn't mean that you have the flu. There are certain things that should happen in your life that is a part of living, that yes, it may not feel good, it may occur to you, but it doesn't mean that you have a disorder. It doesn't mean that you're not functioning properly. And so, Bishop, thank you for reminding us that healthy organisms grow. So if you have been fueling your source, I know exactly where I'm at. If you've been taking in, as Bishop was just saying, if you've been taking on that daily diet of prayer, if you've been taking on that daily diet of meditation, of reading your word, of not forsaking your assembly of together with the saints of the Most High, and going to church and making sure that you're listening to the right music and making sure that you're doing what is right to be able to live a holy and righteous life, healthy organisms grow. Please don't forget that. Because as you grow, there's going to be some changes that occur within your life. And you may not be able to explain it. Others may not be able to explain it. Other people may not even like it. But that's not a time for you to go somewhere and sit down and say, well, I don't know what's going on with me. No, healthy organisms grow. And we want to make sure that if you're healthy, that means that you're taking the right source. That means that you've been fueling yourself with the right source. That means you've been taking in those vitamins, those minerals, those other nutrients that is needed to grow, not just grow spiritually. Yes, we are focused on growing spiritually. But Bishop, I'm just amazed at how many people grow spiritually, but they don't grow emotionally. Oh my Lord. That's a tough.
Listen, I know we're in our last couple of moments, and we hope that we gave some stuff that's helpful. And let me close with this. Use this content for conversation with persons. Dr. Shepard's a physician. Let me say, he just said something key, that not every cold is the flu, but sometimes if you got it, you can feel like it's the flu. And I got a couple other physician friends, and one thing that really, really worries them sometimes is when people go on the internet and then self-medicate and self-diagnose. As it is in medicine, so it is in the things of the spirit. I know we live in an individualistic culture, but sometimes you need to have counsel. There's a pastor right now that has a message out. Say, I don't even know why this person left. They didn't sit, they didn't talk with me, they didn't say anything, because you self-diagnose yourself spiritually. That's not what the priesthood of all believers doctrine means. It doesn't mean we don't have accountability. It doesn't mean that there are some spiritual people who will have oversight to better diagnose where we are spiritually. You don't have to self-medicate. Go to church this weekend. Amen. Glory to God. Amen. Listen, I hope this has been a blessing to you. Have a conversation with your pastor. That's why he's your spiritual recovery. Don't self-diagnose. Not every cold is the flu. Not every conflict is a reason to tender your resignation. Not every time that you didn't get an engagement or you didn't get a chance to preach or sing, that means it's your season to move on. It means you need to have a conversation for a better diagnosis, because not every cold is the flu. You catastrophic. We got to go. I hope this has helped you today. Tune in next time, because by the grace of God, we look forward to seeing you next time on Spirit in Mind.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spirit in Mind, and we're also on Instagram at Spirit in Mind Live. Join us next time for a new episode of Spirit in Mind.
This program is brought to you by Spirit